This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's October 14th, 2024. On this day in 1971, a Vanderbilt professor's accomplishment pushed the university into new territory. For the first time, administrators could boast that they had a Nobel laureate on the faculty. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. Now, Vanderbilt is again celebrating a Nobel win. This time, the honor is going to an alum. John M. Jumper is one of 3 scientists honored with this year's chemistry prize. He helped develop an AI model to decipher the folded shape of proteins. Usually, it takes years for the Nobel Committee to determine an advance is important enough to be honored with their prize. They like to see ripple effects, especially in the science fields. They want to determine that it's not just an incremental discovery, but one that seriously shakes things up. So it is remarkable that Jumper is being honored just 4 years after demonstrating his technology. But it does check all the boxes. In that short time, his model has played an important role in a number of subsequent discoveries, including the development of new medicines. So this might have you wondering about that first Vanderbilt Nobel. What was that one for? What ripple effects came from it? And who won it? Well, I'll take that last question first. His name was Earl Sutherland, a former Army surgeon who started his research career after World War II. He was really interested in hormones and how they work. He and his team figured out that there's a kind of molecule they nicknamed the second messenger that helps pass signals between cells. If you think about the hormone as the delivery guy knocking on the door of a cell to give it the set of instructions that should be followed, the second messenger is the book conveying those instructions. The mechanism that Sutherland discovered was far simpler than anyone expected. And so, for a while, a lot of other scientists were skeptical. But soon after, a few other studies confirmed his findings. And within a few years, it was clear. Sutherland had solved a mystery that had been puzzling everyone ever since hormones were first discovered. As for ripple effects, well, once he cracked the code of that mechanism, Sutherland was right there in the group of researchers who quickly moved to using it to make better sense of hormone actions. By the time he got his Nobel, Sutherland had already made a subsequent discovery about the way epinephrine, aka adrenaline, helps spur the body to increased activity. Plus, he discovered a previously known enzyme. And as they looked more closely at the so-called second messenger, others realized there are similar molecules in single-celled organisms like bacteria, leading to the realization that this molecule may just be the most primitive form of hormone. In other words, Sutherland's discovery unlocked greater insight into the order in which our cellular biology evolved. In just a few minutes, the remarkable story of a reclusive folk singer you've probably never heard of. But once you know what he's been up to and who he's been around, you'll wonder why you didn't already know his name. That's coming up after the newscast.
At WPLN, we tell stories about honoring our families.
If he become a monk, that means that mom and dad will go to heaven when they pass away.
And preserving memories.
I never heard of a Rosenwald school. Nobody's never told me that's where I went.
I'm Char Daston, and my reporting connects you with your neighbors and the important moments in their lives.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Nashvillians face a consequential decision this election day whether or not to approve the city's transit referendum. Before voters decide on the plan, which would raise the sales tax rate by a half cent to fund a slate of transit upgrades, WPLN wanted to ensure listeners felt they understood the proposal. So we solicited your questions and concerns, and then we answered them. For example, one listener asked about airport bus service, how it would change. Hint. The answer is higher frequency, new routes, and transit center upgrades. And they asked why those updates haven't already happened. Here's WPLN's Cynthia Abrams.
As far as why these changes are not happening now, Well, WeGo's director, Steve Bland, says it comes down to funding, or lack thereof.
For us, it's kind of a zero-sum game with the amount of funding we have now.
Which is really what a lot of this comes down to. It's why the city is pursuing this referendum in the first place. Nashville doesn't have a dedicated source of funding for its transit system, which the referendum is seeking to change.
Find all the answers to the submitted questions, along with the rest of our transit referendum coverage at WPLN.org/transit. City officials say they will work to make Dickerson Pike safer for pedestrians with or without the transit referendum, but some tell the Tennessean a comprehensive approach will speed up the process. Dickerson Pike is one of the city's 9 high-injury streets. More than 30 pedestrians and drivers have been killed in accidents along that road in the past 5 years. It's notoriously scary to cross, and long stretches have no sidewalks. Sean Parker is the Metro Council member who represents the area. He tells the paper there's been some progress, like lowering speed limits along the corridor and improving traffic signals at crosswalks. The $3 billion transit referendum would include projects all over the city. On Dickerson Pike, it includes 24/7 bus service that runs every 15 to 20 minutes, reconfigured streets, new sidewalks, crosswalks, and adaptive traffic signals. 1 person is dead and 9 are injured after shots broke out near Tennessee State University's homecoming celebration over the weekend. The exchange of gunfire started around 5 p.m. Saturday, according to the Metro Nashville Police Department. TSU's homecoming festivities have taken place every year for nearly a century. In audio from News Channel 5, Nashville Fire Department spokesperson Kendra Loney says the armed conflict cast a shadow on that.
We are upset. We are angry about that disruption. We are angry that there were persons whose days were disrupted, that the innocence in this event was taken away, and that lives were endangered.
Police say it doesn't appear the conflict was related to the celebration. They say one man, 24-year-old Vonquay Johnson, has died, and a 55-year-old woman was in critical condition as of Saturday. Other victims include a 12-year-old and 2 14-year-olds. MNPD says 2 of the 10 victims are suspected of being involved in the shooting, but both refused to be interviewed at the hospital. Tennessee State University issued a statement about this shooting and a separate incident at Nissan Stadium. There, a hand-to-hand fight broke out, and as the crowd ran for safety, 3 people were trampled. The university pledged to share information as it becomes available. Hurricane Helene took out one of the country's largest IV fluid plants, which sits outside Asheville, North Carolina. Hurricane Milton hit another company's plant in Florida, but did much less damage. WPLN's health reporter Catherine Sweeney tells us supply is tight, but it won't affect every healthcare provider.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says there is a strain on access to these fluids made by Baxter International, but with other companies scaling up and conservation strategies, the fallout should be limited. The company is putting caps on how much product health providers can order to prevent hoarding, which makes shortages worse. Dr. Mark Sullivan is the chief pharmacy officer at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. That system hasn't run into supply issues at the hospital, but there were concerns about one service.
Baxter really does a great job in that niche of the market, helping patients do home dialysis. And so we were initially slightly concerned that we were going to have to come up with alternative strategies for that patient population. But we've been able to get shipments this week and continue business as normal.
He noted that other providers' home health services might have a hard time finding fluids for IV nutrition. Systems that do rely on Baxter might ask patients to delay elective surgeries. That term refers to all operations that are scheduled, as opposed to emergency surgeries. Catherine Sweeney, WPLN News.
About 1,000 Knoxville residents evacuated their homes last week after workers at a nearby recycling center found a 5-by-5-foot box containing what they suspected was dynamite. An employee at the CMC recycling center tried to open the box with a torch when the contents began to smoke. Local police investigated and said they found no evidence that it was placed on the site, quote, maliciously. Bomb squad technicians cleared out the box and rendered the explosive safe by Friday night when residents who live within 3,000 feet of the recycling center were finally given the okay to return home. The owner of local crime news and gossip site Scoop Nashville has died. Jason Steen had shared online that he would be going on a ventilator in mid-September. Scoop Nashville largely posted information about crimes with an emphasis on arrest mugshots and some accountability reporting. Steen's own arrest in 2021 on charges of theft of services also gained local attention, as did civil lawsuits from former employees over wages. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Musician Tucker Zimmerman has been a part of almost every major cultural movement since the 1950s, but he's never at the center of them. Last year, his music was noticed by the band Big Thief. Together, they've made a freewheeling album called Dance of Love that brings two separate eras into one common feeling. WNXP music reporter Justin Barney brings us the story of this musical, Forest Gump.
I'm Tucker Zimmerman.
Zimmerman was born in San Francisco in 1941. When he was 18, he was at the headquarters of the Beat Generation, sipping coffee and communing with Allen Ginsberg when Jack Kerouac published On the Road. And that did something to his mind.
It opened it. It opened the fact that I could also write. I could also create.
Inspired by the art, he got a Fulbright scholarship to study in Rome.
I was also being chased by the draft. They needed cannon fodder for Vietnam. I didn't go back.
In Rome, he drank wine, wrote songs, and met the love of his life, Marie Claire.
Come here, Bear. Hello. We've been together since Rome.
When his scholarship ended, he couldn't find work in Rome, and he didn't think that he was worthy of teaching. Also, he couldn't go back to the United States because he would have been arrested for draft dodging. So, penniless, he fled to London.
I was out on the street, hand to mouth,
He started to meet other young folk musicians in the scene who were also trying to make it. Zimmerman went to a studio to record his 1969 album, 10 Songs, and the producer, Tony Visconti, brought in an unknown musician who wanted to know more about recording in a studio. A young David Bowie.
Ground control to Major Tom.
He helped me a few times get gigs illegally. I had great respect for him as a person. Not so much as a songwriter, because I didn't really like his songs very much, but I really respected him as a person.
That album, 10 Songs, great album. But it wasn't promoted by the record label, and it did not do well. And because of that, it caused them to flee yet another country.
Marie Claire and I both had to leave very quickly because I couldn't prove that I was making any money. So we had to get out in a week, and we came to Belgium at that point.
And there they've lived happily for 40 years, writing books, making music, just being kind of beatnik hippies.
But you can't run a rabbit in a rat race. It's liable to come in the last place.
And then, decades after he made it, Tucker Zimmerman's music found the ears of the band who embodies the hippie spirit more than any other band I've talked to, Big Thief.
Ash to ask and dust to dusk, a dime a dozen, aren't we just? But a dozen dimes will buy a crust of garlic bread.
When was the first time that you heard the name Tucker Zimmerman?
My friend Adrienne Linker, she had gone to Colorado. She was on a long trip across the country in her truck.
That's Buck Meek, guitarist for Big Thief. Adrienne is the lead singer.
She had stayed with someone way up in the mountains and gotten a stick and poke tattoo of a spiral. They had put on square dance. I think it just really blew her mind. And then I saw her shortly after that, and she showed me the square dance record. And neither of us could believe that we hadn't heard it because it was just instantly our favorite record.
Old brother John lives back in the woods on a homestead farming mostly tree stumps.
We composed a letter to Tucker just expressing how much his music meant to us and that we would love to share some shows.
At that point, I was really reluctant to talk to anybody outside. In the couple of years or 3 years previous, there were several people who came to me with these ideas that they were going to do something for me. And of course, none of it worked out. They were all fantasies.
But Big Thief was serious, and it got him on a call together to talk about the moments.
You guys persisted, Buck. Adrienne,
I think so.
you persisted. The first thing that Adrienne said to us all together, she said to me, "Now we're going to make an album of your."
That's right.
And I have no regrets. I was so glad that my hermit tendencies, I was able to overcome them a little bit.
Then it was time to record their new collaborative album, Dance of Love, and they all got together at a cabin in the woods in the East Coast.
We all recorded in one big room together, sitting in a circle with our guitars and a little 2-inch tape machine and a couple dogs.
What was your favorite memory of that time?
The moment in when we were recording the season, and it was raining. The screen windows were open, and I heard in the background thunder. The heavens opened up while we were recording. Luckily, we kept that take.
'Cause it's the season when all the dreams of your dreams come true.
For WNXP, I'm Justin Barney.
WNXP is our music discovery station. It's also a great place to find the soundtrack of your day, and as we just heard, to learn the stories behind the music and musicians. You can listen online at WNXP.org or on the radio at 91.1 FM. As for this podcast, well, we do this roundup of Nashville news every weekday. Please consider subscribing on your favorite podcasting app. Thanks so much to all of you who've left 5 stars, a thumbs up review, or a review in your app of choice. Thanks so much to all of you who have left 5 stars, a thumbs up, or a review in your app of choice. That little bit of love really does tell the algorithms that more people should hear about us. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You make a donation at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up tomorrow.